What a week. And you know, it was so nice of them to fly us here to Doha so that we could be part of the World Cup. Amazing, isn't it? Here we are sitting in the stadium. Wait a second. We're not. But we are at the center.
We wish we were.
Oh, yes. We are at the center of the World Cup in Beijing here at the ambassador of Qatar's residence. And he has set up an amazing number of tents.
That's right.
One fully Arab tent. We'll take a look at later, and then a hospitality tent, which is just incredible.
We have to be very grateful to him.
Yeah.
He's been very kind, and Qatar has run a fantastic World Cup. So far, really good.
Well, we are going to hopefully talk to the ambassador a little bit later,
about that.
Yeah, we'll go through some of the numbers. Hey, let's talk about the G20 again. I mean, you had a great quote. Come on.
Okay. This is again from some ASEAN country diplomats.
Yeah.
What do you mean G20? It's the She-20.
Or the She-12.
The She-12.
Because there were 12 sideline meetings.
That's right.
That he had.
In 2 days.
Incredible. I noticed that in addition to Biden's sideline chat with Xi, he had one other one with Erdogan. And it turns out it wasn't happy talk. It was Erdogan saying that stop arming the Kurds, PKK, or I will take action. Apparently, he's decided to take action.
Apparently, they couldn't reach an agreement on this.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, what a contrast. She came out with, okay, we need to be responsible adults. We need to start looking at the problems of the world. You know, we need to, of course, mend the relationship, but it's to help the rest of the world. Biden's narrative was all about, you know, where's the bottom of this contentious relationship so that we don't end up in war. Very, very different.
That's right. And the Americans were pushing this Russian-Ukraine conflict to...
DPRK.
That's right.
Yeah.
Beat up on everybody.
Well, it's not, yeah, Iran was on there too. But I mean, what's interesting to me is that failing to have addressed the nuclear issue with the DPRK, saying that there's going to be a war in Ukraine, but doing nothing to prevent it, walking away from the Iranian things. What is their answer in every single case? China should do something about this. This is the same China. Yeah, it's the same China. They say, you know, you're horrible people. You steal our stuff. You're human rights abusers. All this stuff. But when it comes to a hard issue, well, why aren't you doing something about this? I find it a little bit odd.
I think we should look at the G20 meeting in Bali in a broader context also, because immediately before the G20 session, there were 4 heads of state that visited Beijing, one after another.
Wow. Yeah, but you know, the German Olaf Scholz comes, and then he goes back to Germany. He takes $6 billion back home in terms of deals, and he gets back there, and they say that they're going to take action against Chinese business interests.
That's right. The acquisition by the Chinese company of a chip manufacturer.
How much do you think was due to U.S. pressure?
I think it's a combination of things. There is still a very strong force in the U.S., in Germany, that is beholden to U.S. interests and follow U.S. interests. And in particular, the Green Party. This is interesting.
You think they would be backing the U.S.? I mean, because the U.S. hasn't been very forthcoming on what's important to the Green Party, which would have been COP26.
That's right. But the Green Party is the one that's pushed for shutting down all nuclear power plants in Germany.
Yeah, but why would they be jumping up and down on this chip issue? It doesn't. I mean, if I'm a green, I like China because it produces at a substantially lower cost all the things necessary to change away from nuclear. I want renewables, right?
Yes.
Why are they? It's a strange bedfellows situation.
Well, I think it's worse than that, because the Green Party members who joined the coalition to become part of the government are in some very critical positions, including the foreign minister. right? Now,
But Schultz went against his foreign minister with this trip.
that's right, absolutely. But what's interesting about this is the Green Party members of his coalition government are number one, not experienced in diplomacy,
Yeah.
and are ideological hawks.
Yeah. So I think
Human rights.
Yeah. No. I know. But
Well,
I mean, what we're going to have is a complete a divergence between ideology and reality. Is
That's
what,
right.
what
Yeah.
you're saying. Okay.
By the way, there was another visitor. I think I don't know if he's come. The head of Cuba.
Yes. Yeah. That'll be
That's
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another nation that's reviled by the U.S. where how many years? 70 years of sanctions or something like this, and yet no change.
No change.
No change.
They want a regime change.
But
many times.
why does on North Korea the U.S. introduced a resolution, not a full resolution, but a presidential an executive message. It failed, and it just seems, and basically it's saying, oh, there's got to be more sanctions. Well, if sanctions are going to work, wouldn't they have worked by now? Is this a dead horse that the U.S. continues to beat without any tangible results coming from it?
Well, I think in terms of North Korea, again, the U.S. is looking for an enemy to pump up its
But
rhetoric.
North Korea is de facto now a nuclear power. We talked about that last week.
Yeah.
And what the only thing coming out of the U.S. is China should do something, right? And unfortunately, I think it's true. I mean, it's the pressure of a nuclear arms race in Asia is mounting.
North and South Korea and Japan.
Well, that missile that flew over, that was an ICBM. It went over 3,000 meters, or 3,000 feet.
Which means it could hit the U.S., right?
It can hit the U.S. I think the U.S. isn't necessarily worried because they can track an ICBM while they have the re-entry. You basically fire it up and it has to re-enter, and it doesn't. If it burns up in re-entry, it's not good. So they have that down, but I don't think they have the sophisticated
targeting.
Evasion. So the idea is you send up an ICBM and then you have multiple re-entry vehicles that are on different trajectories, and this, makes it harder for them to intercept. My guess is the U.S. would be trying to knock them down while they were going up. I'm sure they're trying to make sure they can.
This is why also they want to increase all of their radar facilities.
Well, that's the excuse.
In South Korea.
I mean, South Korea has the THAAD missile arrangements that China was not happy about, and that cooled the economic relations between the countries.
Well, the THAAD system, unfortunately, not only tracks North Korea, but it tracks 1,000 kilometers into China.
Yeah, but yesterday I was doing a program and I was talking to some people, and I said, they were talking, oh, we need more bombs, we need more military adventure. I said, okay, is that going to solve it? Or are these, quote, preventative measures against the end of civilization?
Yeah.
I said, if you're going to go forward, it doesn't have to be diplomatic. And they said, yes, but North Korea doesn't want to talk, they don't trust us. I said, well, gee whiz, I don't know why they wouldn't trust you. You walk away from treaties, you start wars. Your word is no good from one administration.
Why would they not trust you?
Well,
exactly.
I mean, a number of these things are the fault of the North Koreans in terms of there's been 6 nations, but one of them, the one that had the most legs on it, chance of success, was the one that Clinton arranged, and it was basically giving them substitute power and also some economic development funds. But then when Bush was elected, he walked away from the deal.
Once again.
And he didn't deliver. And at that point, there hasn't been trust ever since. So, there's plenty of fault to go around, but in the end, I don't think bullets and bombs are going to solve it. So we talked last time about the situation with our Canadian friend, Mr. Trudeau, being schooled in a very nice way, I thought. And what I don't think what most people realize is the Chinese press did not release that video. It was only released by the Canadian press. It was not played internally in China because they didn't want to embarrass the leader. And you'll note that the last thing he does is shake hands with Trudeau,
right.
despite the fact he was very unhappy with his rather unprofessional conduct in terms of. I don't know why if you have a private conversation at a high level with a leader, you don't run to the press and leak it. And you'll note he did not deny he did it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And apparently,
But how can you have a conversation with somebody?
That's right.
A frank one.
Yeah. Apparently, what he leaked was also not a very
It wasn't a
accurate
truthful. No. Yeah, but I mean, it just seems why. It just does not seem possible that you have the lack of quality of leadership. I mean, he doesn't have an excuse. His father was prime minister before him. He grew up in politics. You think some of that would have, rubbed off on him.
He grew up in politics, but maybe he didn't grow up or he didn't learn much about diplomacy, because politics may demand that you leak things to the press for your own political benefit.
But
right?
Diplomacy is about trust, and
That's
you
right.
can't do that. Well, the good news is that they had the military-to-military talks. The defense minister of the United States with the head of the Defense Department here in China.
And the president of the central bank in China also had a talk with Janet Yellen.
Yeah.
And apparently the Minister of Commerce is having talks today or tomorrow with Catherine Tai, the U.S. trade representative.
It's kind of surprised at Catherine Tai. I mean, she's definitely a China hawk. She feels embattled because Janet Yellen's idea of getting rid of the tariffs is gaining traction, and she feels that that's going to take away her leverage.
Yeah.
No, her leverage.
Yeah.
She says, well, what's the point? So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if she decides to resign because she's losing that battle.
Yeah.
I don't know if she will or not. Australia talks about meeting with China, although there's been no invitation. I mean, the first thing Albanese did, it was a 30-minute meeting. He goes back, and then somehow a rumor is planted that there's going to be a meeting. And the retort is, oh, it's premature at this point. So,
The Chinese have not confirmed anything.
no, they have said nothing.
Albanese's public statement about the meeting with President Xi was filled with glowing, positive, constructive messages.
Well, one thing that struck my eye is that there's a number of areas in Australia that are denying access to human rights to their prisons.
That's right.
It's not clear exactly why. I don't know why, but I mean, given all the rhetoric that is coming out of Australia and things like that, it was just an odd note. Let's go on to the U.S. The GOP vows to start 5 investigations. They have a slim minority. They're going to be investigating, first off, Biden and his family, Hunter
sure.
Biden, which, I'm perfectly honest, they deserve to be investigated.
That's right.
There's some real questions about the laptop from hell that they discovered. All right, the border issue. They're saying that it's an invasion. COVID. They want to know where the origins are.
That's right.
How much time they're going to waste on that. Afghanistan, which, yes, I agree. There should be a postmortem on what went so terribly wrong.
Over such a long time.
Well, long time, but that's the problem. They're going to concentrate on just getting out and what happened. It was wasted. And they're not going to talk about, is my guess, the Afghan people who are currently starving and facing a tough winter. Very tough. I mean, and in addition to that, they just had an earthquake there. And then they're going to investigate the DOJ for investigating anybody who's Republican. So that'll be interesting. I'm not sure what any of those have to do with inflation and the division of the United States, the existing political, social, economic division.
Exactly, and also the downturn in the economy, which is already beginning to occur.
I know, but the one big thing you can take away from the midterms, people don't want division. All right, they want their main concern is the economy.
That's right.
None of those 5 investigations has anything to do with the economy. And they could be punished for that if they put too much time into it. All right. Now, there's been because Donald Trump announced he is running again. All right.
2024.
2024.
Make America great again.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it got great the first time, but I don't know if he thinks. But he says he's going to do it. As a result, the Department of Justice has named a special prosecutor. And, what does it mean? What do you think?
It's party politics, once again.
Yeah, but a special prosecutor is pretty much independent. They
Supposed
can be
to be,
fired.
right.
They can be fired, but it's a tricky thing. This guy named he was former public integrity chief Jack Smith. He'll oversee the criminal investigations of Trump. First, the mishandling of classified documents, records that were kept at Mar-a-Lago for all its time, which I think is pretty much a slam dunk case.
Mm-hmm.
And then the January 6th investigation, which is dragging on, but I don't know if they can tie it directly to Trump. Let's see.
No.
Trump vows once again not to cooperate. Are you surprised? I don't know.
He's going to say that I'm a presidential candidate. I cannot be investigated because I'm a presidential candidate.
Well, but let's start looking at the polls. The latest Quinnipiac University national poll.
Not too good.
6 in 10 Americans say that it's a bad thing that the president is running for, that Trump is running for president. Only 34% said it was a good thing, which tracks very, very closely with his base. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's at solid 34%, all Republican, mostly Republican, I shouldn't say all things. Democrats, 88% says it's a bad thing. Independents, 58%. And this is what is
He's
the
going
death
to kill
knell.
him.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you don't get
That's
the
what's-
independents on your side, you're done.
Yeah.
Even 27 Republicans, 27% of Republicans, which is only 6-point different, 27, 7-point difference between those who approve. You have 27 who disapprove, highly disapprove. This, if they sit on their hands, this could be a really, really tough thing.
Sitting on their hands is one thing, but the other part is that I think increasingly Republicans, this 27% is probably among those who really believe that Donald Trump is destroying the Republican Party. If he really launches into his 2024 campaign, it will split up the Republican Party.
Well, but the politics,
they lose everything.
Yeah, but all of those guys are interested in winning. When he was the ticket to winning, everyone loved him. But now with the midterms, it's clear he sunk the Republican Party.
That's right.
They should have had massive majorities. They should have had the House and the Senate.
Should have had the red wave.
Yeah.
Never happened because of Donald Trump.
Red trickle.
Yeah.
And nothing in the Senate.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about special prosecutors.
You're the expert.
No, I'm not an expert. But I was just thinking, Robert Mueller, all right, who was, he had indictments of more than 30 people and 3 companies. A lot of the people were eventually pardoned by Trump.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now John Durham, who was appointed by Trump's DOJ, he came up with 2 cases he lost in trial, and one case where somebody pleaded guilty to altering an email used to get a surveillance warrant. After how many years and how many millions of dollars? It's just, let us say, a contrast. Now, the tax returns for Trump have been cleared by the Supreme Court to be released. What do you think we're going to find out?
We're going to find out he didn't pay any taxes, and he played all kinds of tricks not to pay any taxes.
But we're also going to get a real hint of his real worth.
That's right.
That should be interesting. He's been fighting this, and now the game is over, and there's nothing to do. What I'm interested in is, what does he say about the Supreme Court? Because, he's all about personal loyalty. And he says, well, there's 3 of these guys should have been on my side. And then, of course, Clarence Thomas, and he says they should have been loyal. I'm the capo de capos,
I got you there.
Now, another Supreme Court leak issue. A second opinion has been leaked. And, of course, there'll be an investigation. But I mean, our U.S. institutions, the Supreme Court used to be completely beyond criticism.
Approach, right.
Now it's turned to be on political leaks, dissension among and division among the justices themselves, overturning rulings they promised not to overturn, taking they complained about the past courts as being activist courts. I wonder how people view them, given that they've been very, very active on a number of issues.
The other part is seeing how the battles take place in Congress among senators and the House of Representative members, seeing how even within the White House there aren't any really consistent policies or the even battles.
It's not even consistent. There's no end game to a lot of these things.
Strategy at all.
No strategy.
Yeah.
Just we're going to have sanctions. Yeah. Okay. You want to sanction everybody. We're going to play keep away. We're going to prevent China from getting technology. We're going to prevent anyone we don't like from getting anything we have, or others have.
Well, we were just talking about before in terms of Catherine Tsai versus Janet Yellen. So within the executive branch, you have these problems. Within the congressional branch, you have those problems.
Well, that's going back in past administrations, there were real battles. You remember Schultz used to just really have a hard time with Kissinger since Kissinger was running.
That's right. But it should not surprise us that these type of issues starts to come up and show up in the Supreme Court.
I think it's deeper than that. I think it reflects a problem within
deep illness within American society overall. Yeah.
Illness, problem. I mean, we've talked many times. 40 years of failure, and the lower middle classes are paying for it, and obviously they're looking for solutions. They don't know who to trust, and unfortunately, I think sometimes they trust the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Not that there's a lot of, they don't have a lot of choices. Politics as usual, it seems like. All right, here's something. Disinformation, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's American press, it's always about China and Russia disinformation. Well, apparently, according to Meta, said Tuesday, people associated with the U.S. military were likely behind a network of phony Facebook and Instagram accounts that promoted U.S. interests abroad by targeting audiences in Afghanistan and Central Asia. I can't imagine I'm sure that was the only place that they were doing it. So here they are, caught red-handed doing this. I'm going to just go out there and say there won't be an apology.
No.
It's what we do in the national interest. It seems to be the coverall for everything that happens. Along those lines, Michael Bloomberg apologized for allowing Boris Johnson's speech criticizing China as an autocratic nation. He actually went out of his way to say we shouldn't have printed that.
That's right.
But it goes to this deeper issue about right now I'm hearing more and more democracy versus autocracy.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? I mean, I wonder if you're in the Middle East where they still have
emirates,
emirs,
kings, crown prince,
and in parts of Africa still. How exactly that is playing over? Because by definition, by U.S. definition, it's autocratic. But there doesn't seem to be any subtle lines being drawn anymore. It's just they say things just for effect because it sounds simple, setting up these false dichotomies as if there's only two ways of governing in the entire universe. Mm-hmm. Democracy, American style, everything else is autocracy.
But this is really something that the U.S. administration has jumped on in the last 2 years, the Biden administration, because Mr. Trump certainly didn't care about that. But Mr. Biden, President Biden, used the theme of common values as a rallying cry.
Common with who? Europe?
Exactly.
How about the rest of the world?
Exactly. He needed that as a catch-all,
But it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you stand outside the conversation...
It doesn't make any sense.
It bothers me in that there's this lack of circumspection,
Yeah.
this inability to look at yourself and what you're saying and just saying, wait a second, that doesn't even make sense. I mean,
But do they need to? Do they want to look inside themselves?
well, isn't it about time? I mean, I looked up the definition of what a rogue nation is.
Uh-huh.
Okay, a rogue nation unilaterally breaks treaties,
Yeah.
does not respect the global institutions. They start wars, all right, and they say that they're autocratic.
Interfere in other people's internal affairs.
Yes, they interfere in the affairs of other sovereign nations. By that definition, all right,
It's the U.S. of A.
The U.S. of A. would fit into that definition. But
Perfectly.
I doubt anybody in the State Department or the U.S. would accept that.
That's right.
I said that to an official, to an intellectual last night. It was on some television show, and he just got apoplectic. He was just over the roof. How can you say that? We are the upholders of liberty, and there's going back to this policeman of the world. But right now, I don't see countries, even in Europe, who are welcoming the United States as the policeman of the world. Netherlands said, look, we are a sovereign nation. We'll decide, our companies are free to sell their high-tech equipment to whoever they want.
Yep.
But the U.S. has a lot of levers. They can use the banking system, SWIFT. They can put, say, we're not going to give you weapons. We're going to bar you from our country.
Economic coercion.
But how long is that going to last? How many friends do you get? I mean, I always think of Mexico right now is not very friendly to the U.S. They're connected, but they still feel that they were forced into a situation with the second.
What's the expression they use in Mexico? Mexico is very far away from God, but very close to America.
Well, let's see. Retailers are warning of self-inflicted economic disaster after the largest rail union rejects labor deal and says they're going to strike. So the narrative to this point has been it's all China's fault. Yeah. All the logistic issues are China's fault. Even Ukraine.
Yeah.
Now I wonder, with the number of strikes at ports, railways, airlines, truckers, whether there's going to be any kind of saying, well, this is a situation and it's all sparked by inflation.
Yeah. How can people survive if you have this type of inflation, if they're eating from hand to mouth?
Yeah, no, their incomes are going down. They don't. Right. They were living hand to mouth,
and
now their incomes have gone down.
Yeah.
So, I don't know where they is. Let's talk about Twitter and Elon Musk.
Oh
my gosh, boy, oh boy, he's had quite a week. Twitter faces mountains of debt, falling revenues, and surging costs.
Yeah.
And let's say there's a little bit of a human resource problem too.
Serious one.
7,500 employees, and he's like asking people who aren't prepared to do 996, which is normal in China perhaps, but not, even less. No, getting to be less. But he wants the U.S. workers to basically commit to 996, but he's not offering anything in return. He's just kicking them out. He says, oh, I'm getting rid of the trash. But now he's trying to rehire them back because he didn't know who was going to leave.
Okay.
Because people said, well, goodbye.
That's right. Now, this is interesting because 7,500 or 8,000. Now, WeChat has a much more sophisticated system.
And a revenue generator.
And makes a lot of money and does so many other things beyond what Twitter does. Staffing, 2,000.
Well, I guess we know who's a little bit more efficient. But then, he got rid of the blue checks, but it's coming back, pay $8 and then you're verified.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean that it means anything, but it means that you paid $8 a month in order to get that. Without knowledge or talent, Twitter is a shell. It's a bunch of office buildings, some patents, a brand. And, without,
not
I
even-
don't understand exactly getting rid of your only major differential asset, your competitive advantage, to the extent that Twitter does, just seems crazy to me. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, brilliant engineer, great ideas, but social media is going to cost him a lot of money, big things. Then he said, "Oh yes, he had the contest. Should Donald Trump be in or out? And a narrow 52 to 48 split. We don't know how it was counted or how many bots voted on this. Given that I wonder if the bots that they discovered, in metaverse were actually voting on Twitter and which way they voted. That would be interesting. So
he's bringing Mr. Trump back.
Well, he's opened it up, but apparently Trump is really interested in the 89 million followers on there. But you told me he's prevented from actually going back to Twitter.
Well, he was.
Well, I mean, he has his Truth Social network.
His own network.
Yes, and in order to make that happen, they have this SPAC, which is a financial vehicle, it's a blank check company that's not supposed to have a target before the money is raised, but
no, the whole SPAC was a financial engineering for him.
Yeah, I know.
For Mr. Trump.
But you're not supposed to do that.
That's right.
In any event, apparently as part of the terms,
that's right,
he cannot appear on any other social media if the SPAC is going to go through. But I think the SPAC is going to fail, and I think Mr. Trump will be back at Twitter.
Especially if Twitter continues to have financial issues, financial problems, then people would not go into the SPAC.
No. Well, there's a real question, given his popularity and the polls that we just talked about, whether people are going to think it's a good bet to have Donald Trump. I mean, the advertisers are holding back.
That's right.
They've announced publicly that they're not going to be advertising until they figure out what Twitter is.
Not only advertisers, major contributors of the Republican Party are now saying they won't be backing Trump.
No, they won't be backing Trump. And then on top of that, Tesla recalls 321,000 vehicles over rear light issues.
Rear light problems.
Not a good things. Freedom, I mean, the whole thing is, he said that he is a freedom of speech absolutist. Okay, well, it's kind of interesting. You know, he is putting together an algorithm which allows him to manipulate what people see on Twitter. So you can say what you want, but I'll only funnel stuff to you that
I want you
to see. I'm just carrying a little bit of a problem. And he also, as we said last week, he fired people because they made fun of him.
That's right.
His own employees. I don't know if that's my definition of an absolutist, but we'll leave that in things.